Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss podcast. And today I'm joined by another really fantastic, amazing person who I'm so excited that we get to have a conversation with today. His name is Joshua Church. And Joshua, I'm going to actually read his bio because it's awesome. He helps high performers implement the right strategy, mindset, and systems to reach their next level. And, Joshua has also been one of the coaches in one of my business communities that I belong to, High Impact Coaching, which has been amazing. And, just being around you, Josh, and it's just always like this beam of radiant light that just feels like hits my body and brain and mind every time that I hear you speak. And, just your way of looking at things and the way that you just intimately care about every single person that you're speaking with, right? You can just feel that on a palpable level. And, it just makes me know that you have that awareness, that all human beings are doing the best that they can. And some of us, all of us get trapped in certain areas of, thinking in ways that aren't serving us, that can hold us back or get in the way of us having ultimate success. Right. And here at Hypnosis for Permanent Weight Loss, that's absolutely everything that we're tackling, right? Is just understanding the way that I always say is that the only thing that's wrong with you is that you think and believe that there's something wrong with you, right? And just holding on to these disempowering thoughts, right, for my community around weight, body, the way that you're eating, your habits, behaviors, etc., right, are the things that are just, it's not your fault that they're there. It's just the way that you wound up being, based on your childhood or your upbringing or your background. And the judgments on self is what prevents you from being able to expand the mind, right? And be able to forgive yourself. And then from that place, take on different actions that are going to reap you different results and better outcomes. So, Josh, thank you so much for being here first.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. Every time we get to have a conversation, I'm always overjoyed. It's always a great connection.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, and I know you have a podcast as well. Could you tell us the name of that? Would love to hear.
Yeah, definitely. So the name of my podcast is called Find the Others, and this is really my mission. Albert Einstein once said there's two ways to live life. One is though nothing is a miracle, the other is that everything's a miracle. So I'm really wired to wanting to find the others that are living the miracle, that see the miracles, that are the miracles, that can connect on that level and are looking to understanding the hardware and software we were given and are looking to play at a higher level. They're looking to upgrade, to download the new software versions, to rewrite the beliefs and the thought patterns in their mind to get the most out of life and have fun. So I really feel like it's just a passion and a mission of mine to connect with the others. You are one of the others, Leslie. That's why we always have such electric connections and conversations and always love it. So that's what I do over my podcast, is just have conversations with interesting people, the others, and it's all just helping people give others permission to be the others and to embody that.
That's awesome. Thank you for the work that you do. I'm so glad that your voice gets out into the world and other people are going to be able to be electrified by that because it's powerful as anything. So that's awesome. And yeah, exactly what you're saying around the Einstein quote. It reminds me of also, when people say about, life is happening for me rather than to me, and just like how much that, just that little turnaround right there can just have you just behave and act and see life in a whole different way. And I also remember, and I never had a conversation with you about this, Josh, but I heard you in the past say something around how, you play life like it's a virtual reality game. And like, that's something that I always say. I was on Gavin McHale's Strength Coach podcast, and that's what I was saying to him. I was like, it's just a game. Like, it's a hilarious game that we're playing. Like every day, it's like, how good can I play the game? Even when things are happening that I can't control, right? Which when it comes to entrepreneurship and just life in general, it's like the truth is we can't control, what's happening out there. And, going into my client basis of being like on diet mentality, right? And it's like they're perfect on the diet when they're just like inside the box of these are the exact rules you follow, like, right? And they do well and they're successful and they'll lose all this weight. And then they go back into the real world, the place where they can't control, like family saying things to them or, how much food is on the buffet table, right? Or like the different things that has them just completely go off track and, gain all the way back because there is no one size fits all, right? And so it's like when we learn how to play the game better, which includes emotional mastery, because let's be honest, like it's emotionally challenging out there. then, we get better results. And then it's like, hey, guess who's winning the game? It's me over
That's
here.
right.
So I'm curious, Josh, like, how do you coach your people, through, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, it's a game and the big show's happening now, right? It's like it's all big practice, but it's the big show's happening now. It's not like that I don't separate um dieting in the box from real life. It's like it's all for real life and it's all happening now. The real world, like we're in the real world. That's something that I always remember in college when people were like, "Oh, like the real world's around the corner. Like, what are you going to be doing in the real world?" I'm like, last time I checked, like, the world is real and it's here, it's now. It's not like this other thing. So I think
Mhm.
understanding that it's integrative, and when you can really see it like that, it becomes a game because the lessons that you're learning as you're working with a coach, as you're working with some of your clients, the lessons you're learning will be tested. There's something that I like to call the 24-hour, 48-hour rule, and I took this from a mentor of mine. Basically, whenever you feel like you have learned a concept or you have an insight or an intuition kind of sparks up, turns the volume up, and you feel like you're learning something new or you're shifting a pattern, within the next 24 to 48 hours, you will be served up a test and it
Mhm.
will be very, very clear. It's like it always happens. And it's the way I look at it is the universe being like, you sure? Like, you sure, bro?
Mhm.
Like, you really got that
Mhm.
down? And it's a
Mhm.
funny thing, but that's kind of like the game of it. It's a video game. It's like cool. You feel like you're at the precipice of a new level of beating this boss in this level. And it's like, you sure? Like, you're gonna have to fight the boss, but then once you fight it, then you beat the boss, and then you're on to the next level, and there's another level, and there's
Mhm.
another level, and it's just we're just playing levels and playing a game and enjoying the process because it's supposed to be fun. Last I checked, like we play games because they're fun, right? Like I think
Mhm.
that's how we intended to come here into this planet is like this is supposed to be fun. Like this is supposed we can create we can turn thoughts into things. We can create with our imagination and our mind. We can have connections, we can have experiences that feel really good and supposed to be fun last time I checked. So like let's have fun playing the game and let's have fun through the process, through the roller coaster that is life, and let's have fun through the ups and the downs and the peaks and the valleys. So it's just kind of viewing it that way as a more dynamic, integrative game.
I love that. I'm taking a personal development course right now that's all around the joy and passion of living. And it had us look at
Mm,
what's one area of your life, and those who are listening can think about this, right? That you just totally love, that you feel so joyful, so passionate. You just want to be doing that 24/7. And so everybody like thought of that in their area of life or whatever. And they were like, now think of the area of life that you are most challenged by. And it's like, why can't you apply that same feeling of joy and passion to this area? And what if you did? Right?
right.
And it's
Right.
just perfect what you're saying of like, yes, there's challenges and the difference between playing life sitting on the stands and watching, versus exactly what you're talking about, like on the court, life is happening now, like get in the game. Like, do you want to be the spectator at the sport or do you want to jump in there and do it? And my clients, and I think every coach's clients, like the ones who are sitting back and, just taking notes, but not necessarily in the game, like taking those actions,
Hmm.
taking on the coaching, it's like it doesn't work, right? Because we're not actually, repaving the neural pathways to create different habits that gives us different results. So love everything
That's
that you're
right.
saying about that.
It's mental stimulation. It's just like it's cool, but where's the beef? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. It's cool, but where's the beef? 100%.
Yeah.
And
Or
it's like
the where's the impossible meat patty, right?
the impossible, exactly. Whatever floats your boat. The impossible meat is
Exactly.
the real meat, 100%. Yeah, and it's like so those challenges are there, and it's like, I say to my clients because sometimes, they'll be going through the program and then all of a sudden, life will happen and there'll be a trigger and it would be a normal time when they would choose to use food as, a way to medicate
Mm,
that emotional pain. And, and then they'll feel hard on themselves and all this kind of stuff, and it's like I want to, invite you to look at this as, rather than this is a breakdown or a failure, it's like this is to be celebrated. Like, thank God this is happening to you while you're in this program so
mhm.
that you can now get coached and go into the body and get past the emotional stuff that's holding you back from being able to realize that it's safe to feel pain, like there are other ways to medicate it and that are really beautiful and healthy and like unconditionally loving to yourself than that. And there's nothing wrong with using food to soothe. It is actually very soothing, you know but, just kind of adding to your toolbox of like, what are some other ways to tackle, life so that you can keep playing the game and not have to, have that panic, right? Because my client's panic is, oh my gosh, if these kinds of things keep happening to me, I'm going to end up, 500 pounds and on, my biggest, fattest life or whatever those reality
Right.
TV shows are. But it's like now you can actually sit back and see, like, if I'm able to manage these really painful experiences, because all my clients are the type of clients that want to be on the court, they do want to play the game, right? But all of these thoughts and feelings and emotions and scary things of going out there and putting themselves at risk are too confronting. So let's kind of like pad the rails. I was just giving that metaphor of like, you've basically chosen to play bowling, right? To play a bowling game,
Yeah.
but you've
Yeah.
chosen to add bumpers to your game so that you can get the strike faster, And to me, that's the way that I see coaching, and super smart to invest in ourselves in that way.
Agree.
Mhm.
Completely agree.
Mhm.
Said it very, very well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Josh, I know that you help a lot of people in lots of different ways with their businesses. Like, how do you, first of all, I'd love to hear your story. So, like, when did you start
Yeah.
getting into mindset stuff, and what was, that like for you?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I was just telling the story the other day, but I think the first time I realized, like, hold up, there's something going on here, was when it came from a hardship. It came from one of the biggest challenges that I've gone through in my life, which was I came really close actually to having my leg amputated from an injury that I had, where I had this thing called compartment syndrome, and it came from blunt force trauma from a football injury, actually. And that's where the muscle compartment fills up with blood and it restricts the blood flow. So it's basically like someone was wrapping a tourniquet around the top of my groin and no blood was flowing down. And so they have a matter of hours to be able to operate to relieve the pressure and ensure that you don't have to lose your leg, which is a crazy thing. So I ended up in the ER and thinking I was going to get some pain meds because I was in a lot of pain and be sent home all right. And next thing I know, I was getting wheeled into the operating room for surgery like an hour later. It's like I woke up that day not thinking anything was going to be different today, and that just kind of set me in a different trajectory. So I missed the rest of our football season, and I wasn't able to play basketball because of my recovery. But what happened was from that there were so many emotions that were flowing through me, and I took to writing from that. That's actually how I found my voice. Writing was because I had all these emotions after the whirlwind of surgery and coming down. I just put my pen to paper and I wrote this spoken word poem. And are you familiar with spoken word poetry?
Yeah, a little bit, but would love to hear more about it.
It's yeah, it's just a very cool. It's poetry that's written to be spoken, right? To be read aloud. So it's kind of like a mix between a poem and like a song, if you will, because there's you can catch the rhythms of speaking and the words that you can bring it to life, which I just found is a very cool medium. And so I just sat down and I wrote in one take, like, wow, this feels exactly how I felt. And I went to my mom. I was like, Mom, I just wrote this. I don't really know what this means, but I just wrote this. It felt like I actually really channeled something for the first time in my life, and it was really powerful. And so that we decided to take that and go film me doing that at the hospital, outside of the hospital, because it was a really cool. I can send you the YouTube link to it of
Mm, I love
17-year-old Josh
that.
sharing the spoken word poem, and so I'm performing it at the hospital, and someone who works at the hospital like overhears, and they're like, oh my god, that was amazing, like send that to me when you're done, I want to send it to people in the hospital. So they sent it around. Next thing I know, I'm getting invited to be the keynote speaker to share my story and to perform this spoken word poem into the system wide doctors conference at Scripps Hospital in front of 1,000 doctors. And I get up there, I share my story, I perform this, and I receive a standing ovation from 1,000 people. And that was the first time I like almost found this calling for using my voice, using my words, and sharing my story in a compelling way and being on stage. It felt so natural to me. And so from that point on, and also because I wasn't able to play basketball season, this is me being a junior in high school, I got encouraged to go try out for the Shakespeare play, and I was like, okay, whatever, I'll go try out for the Shakespeare play. Ended up getting one of the lead roles, and that was one of the most fulfilling experiences in my high school career and to life, to be honest with you. And again, reinforced that idea of speaking, talking, connecting in that way, performing. And so kind of took a step back and I looked at that and I was just like, wow, look at all of the amazing things that happened from this seemingly horrible thing. And I started to be able to connect the dots looking backwards. And Steve Jobs says you can't connect the dots looking forward, only backward. So I was able to actually, for the first time in my life, look back at something that seemed horrible and there was a lot of pain with, and to see like all the beautiful things that actually came from it. That was the first time I realized, wait a sec, things actually might, like, you started viewing that trauma as a blessing, and that roadblock as a speed ramp, right?
Mhm.
And how that seemingly felt in the way, an obstacle in the way, to being on the way, and how it helped me on my path. And that just kind of started me looking at the world a bit differently. Like, where else in my life are there challenges that might have led to something beautiful? And in real time, where else, as I'm experiencing challenges, how might this be leading me to something more beautiful?
Wow. That's absolutely fantastic. 100%. Yeah, really seeing the beauty out of the challenge, and really getting that it's all part of it. It reminds me of a book that I recommend to my clients all the time called The Surrender Experiment by Michael A.
Yeah,
Singer.
love
You
that.
know that one?
Love that
Oh,
book.
so good.
I
He,
finished that book about a month ago, and then I read The Untethered Soul. But
yeah,
that book was very, very powerful as well. Totally, there's a lot of strength in
100%.
surrender. That's something that I've learned. There's a lot of strength in surrender.
Yeah, 100%. And say more about that.
Yeah, so I learned that. Another
Mhm.
tangent. You'll interrupt me if I'm talking too much, right?
Sure. No, you're
Trust
not
me.
at all. It's great. Please keep going.
So I learned this from when I was in Iceland. I did a expedition with a Wim Hof expedition in
Mhm.
Iceland, which is diving deep into the mind body connection, pushing your mind and your body to various degrees, and using cold breath work and mindset as a way of doing that. So cold immersion. So we were doing cold, like literally taking an ice axe and breaking into a frozen body of water, and then getting into there for 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes at a time, and just allowing our body to take hold in the physical process, and being witness to that, taking a back seat, really. So we did some crazy things throughout that week in Iceland, and I learned a lot. And I learned there this idea of, there's tremendous strength in surrender. Going into the cold, I love cold therapy as a mindset, as a physical body, as a relief. Norepinephrine shoots up 530%, which helps you focus, calm, in the zone. You get dopamine hits 250% at will, repeatedly. Dopamine 250% from being in the cold. Like, are you kidding me? Like, we've got this pharmacy in our brain. One of my breathwork teachers, Tyler Forbes, talks about that. We have a pharmacy in our brain we can tap into through work. So I got big into the cold immersion, which is a whole other podcast we could do. But I learned that you can't, if you naturally, when I went into the cold for the first time, I was like, all right, let's get hyped up. Like, we're going to the cold. Like, let's go. You got to be strong. And, you get slapped silly very, very quickly. Like, Mama Nature will slap you across the face very quickly if you try to like beat it out, tough it out. The way that you really can dance with it and dance with the elements to surrender to it is by surrendering. It's relaxing. It's letting go. And through that letting go process is when you're able to really merge with it and dance with it. It requires that feminine energy to like really release and let go. And that takes a tremendous amount of strength. So surrendering to things in your life, like Michael Singer, the surrender experiment, it takes a tremendous amount of strength to surrender. There's strength and recovery. This is something I've learned through doing Ironman triathlons. When you want to keep training and training, it's like sometimes the strongest thing you can do, instead of going to hit another run or bike or swim, is to let yourself rest for a day. And that can be the hardest thing to do at times, especially for us, the entrepreneurs, the go getters. Like, to actually surrender and to rest, it takes tremendous strength. It takes tremendous discipline. So I learned on a very physical level in the cold that there is tremendous strength in surrender.
Absolutely. And yeah, I can totally relate to the stuff you're talking about. I have two similar stories where once I was in Bali and they did have a Wim Hof whole workshop, and they had the hotel
Nice.
fill up the hot tubs with freezing cold ice water just for us for that experience. So, and then getting out and doing all the breathing and all of that kind of stuff. And fantastic. Felt so good. And exactly, the whole thing is when you get in that water, it's to not react, to just surrender the way that you're saying. And then the other story was, it was actually kind of the opposite. I was actually in Malaysia and took the guy's name was Happy, and he was like all like trying to teach me consciousness. Like, we had never known about it before, but I just was like humoring this amazing Malaysian man or whatever. And he takes us to all these different places all around Malaysia, but he says Kuala Lumpur. And then he brings us to these hot springs, and they were actually super hot. Like, probably not regulated hot in the United States hot, like just whatever. But he was working on, the power of the mind with us. So then he was saying, like, you're not allowed to test the temperature of this pool, right? And he was like, just take my hand. And then he had us singing the song of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and like have you repeating it over and over and over again, and just looking at his eyes, holding his hand, and then like going down
Going
into
in.
the water. And it was really
Wow.
interesting because if I wasn't doing that and occupying my mind in that way, like no way would I have been able to get into that water. And I did, and then, acclimated enough and it was okay. My other friend who, interesting because she has a little bit more trust issues, like she didn't sing the song all the way, she didn't maintain eye contact, and guess what? She didn't get into that water.
Yep.
Right. So just such a powerful process. And, talking about what it is that I do. So people giving up that control, right? It's like diet mentality is all about like, how can I control like calories in and calories out and make sure I know every macro and micro that I'm eating and all the different things. But step number one, right, of actually healing this kind of stuff is the hypnosis, which allows you to completely be able to surrender that. Right. And that control. And every single time, and I told this story recently about, when I was in my leadership training, I did some of the most elite leadership training in the world and actually was successful in that. But I got to like the final part of the training and I had done absolutely everything in my control to make this thing happen. And I had already attempted, I think 4 times. You have to lead in front of a certain group of people. You, because of your lead, inspire them to actually take the action to sign themselves up for a transformational coaching experience. Right. And all these different things around that. But, and I'm in India, by the way, and like this whole circumstance was just like, okay, looks impossible. The only thing I hadn't done that I had forgotten, even being a hypnosis for permanent weight loss coach, and doing the hypnosis, was visualization, like imagining, creating my own hypnosis of me going to bed on my 30th birthday as a leader in this program and like having succeeded in all of this. Everything you could have imagined went wrong that day, like everything. But my coaching that I got was, even though everything looks like it's all going bad, you need to make it right. Make absolutely everything happening today right, over and over again. Catch it when you're making it wrong and just go with the flow. Every single thing. And then, I could tell this would be a whole different podcast episode, but I did that, and I did the visualization, and fast forward, I went to sleep that night on my 30th birthday, having completed that thing. And so, really getting for people who are listening that, there is a certain amount that is within our control, but like when we hit the levels of burnout and when things just seem like absolutely impossible, like it's probably time to start talking about the surrender part, and how can I actually let go and have faith and increase the fact that, and do these kinds of tools that we're learning in this program. So,
and you look at, I love that story. And you look at AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is one of the most phenomenal transformational, time-tested programs ever created by mankind. And one of the first, if not the first, I'm not sure, I don't know exactly, but one of the first things is like surrendering and accepting faith in something greater than yourself, and surrendering to that is like the first step of creating that behavioral change. So it definitely is it's an interesting thing, and there's a lot of resistance around it.
So much resistance around it. And I always have so much compassion for the people who are too scared, like my friend was to get into that hot pool with this man that she barely knows in a foreign country. Like maybe I should be a little bit more cautious about the things that I'm doing. But at the same time, because I have that ability to trust, right? Because I'm just like, okay, someone says that they've accomplished this thing over here, right? Because for my clients, it's like they're so attached to, I need to lose this weight and I need to lose it this fast. And I was like, okay, humor me for a second. I'm telling you that the way to lose the weight is to let go of your attachment to that fact that I need to lose it. Like, and I get that that's scary. Yep, exactly. Drop the resistance. I get that it's scary. I get that, you don't know me separate from, whatever. They know me from the podcast or whatever. But, this is what I'm saying to you. Are you brave enough to take that leap of faith with me? And, and what I say to people is it more painful, the hell that you've been living in of constantly be up and down with weight and diets and da-da-da-da-da, right? Like, are you okay with staying on that path for the rest of your life? Or, are you willing to take, the leap of faith, and take the risk that, and do something different to get you to a place of inner peace, happiness, and freedom. And yes, the weight will come off, when you reach that space. So,
yeah, it's really interesting. It's that's fascinating to me, and I have a lot of questions. I got to get you on my podcast so I can pick your brain about all the questions I
Yeah,
have for
sure.
you about it. But it is definitely an interesting thing when you can surrender to that, because it's also like, well, what do you have to lose? Like, give it a shot. You might as well try, because whatever you're doing currently isn't working. So you might as well give it a shot. Like, how's holding on tight, the grips? Like, how's that going for you so far, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I say to people because, I get on the phone with people and they're so jaded. They're like, okay, what else are you going to sell me? Weight loss, like everything's failed. And I'm like, can you just give yourself one more chance? Like, can you just because that's where I find people is like they're at their end of the rope. They're like, I can't do one other diet again, but I'm still terrified of gaining this weight and I don't know what to do. It's like, okay, that's exactly where we're at when it's time to surrender. Right. And can you take that one more leap of faith with me? Like, let's just do that together. So, and nobody is mad at me on the other side. I'll tell you that much. I'm like
That's great.
overwhelmed with how many client wins are happening every day. Like, I don't care about food. I'm not binging anymore. I'm not waking up in the middle of the night and eating like the way it was. Like, all by
Amazing.
stopping to think about it and, letting go of the labels of this food is bad or judging yourself for bad and dropping that resistance. So.
What a concept. I love it.
What
Such good
a
words.
concept. Awesome, Josh. Well, thanks so much for being here. And yeah, tell us again your podcast, how we can find you.
Yeah, Find the Others podcast. You can search it in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the platforms. If you can follow me on Instagram at Joshua Dean Church, Dean Church, and I post lots of clips from my podcast as well in some digestible ways. And that's like podcast and Instagram are the two ways. You can check out my website as well. Some of my photography or writing from the past, but yeah, podcast and Instagram are two ways you can keep up to date.